Our next speaker for today, Ajay Prabhakar. He's a 2008 CSE alumni. Uh, he's currently the owner and managing director of The Score, an Indian music magazine, and he is also working for Implement Hit, that's his product company. So Ajay, I met Ajay at one of the alumni meetings 2 years ago. So again, I just want to add that our alumni network is a great opportunity to meet a lot of people and to keep in touch to network. So, Ajay.
Hey guys, it's actually fantastic to be speaking to all of you, and I'm actually from the 2007 batch, not the 2008 batch. Ashwati got that a little bit wrong. One of the things I'm going to speak on subjects. I mean, I was given only 3 to 4 days to actually come and talk to all of you, and I wanted to speak about subjects that was very close to me in terms of what matters to me from an entrepreneurship point of view. I think the opportunity for alumni associations is great because the Score magazine was actually founded by 3 SVCE alumni way back in 2008. 2 of them eventually left, but it didn't matter. The kind of work that we put together and made work possible was interesting because we were 3 engineers trying to run a music magazine, and that is. There's a story that I would like to say associated with this, something that really got me started in 2008. How many of you have heard of the Wright brothers? All of you? So, what do you think the Wright brothers were? What are the Wright brothers famous for? Popcorn? Yeah, they were cycle mechanics. And there's an interesting story. When I was starting the Score magazine, the question I asked my friend was, hey man, why do we want to start a music magazine? That makes no sense. I don't know anything about music. I literally had no clue what rock music was. I wasn't even though I come from a Carnatic family, I mean my parents, my grandparents, my great-grandfather was the principal of the music college in Kerala. I had no background in music. And I asked him, why are we doing a music magazine? I want to be in a computer startup. I mean, I've seen Steve Jobs' videos. I mean, he's inspired me quite a bit. I've read the Google story. That was the famous book that was going around the rounds in 2008. And hey, man, we should do something. We should, start something. I mean, I had no idea how to start. He said something very interesting, and he told me, see this Guy Kawasaki video on the Wright brothers. And the Guy Kawasaki video on the Wright brothers basically had, and I'm adding my own stories here. The first ever notion of mechanized flights did not come from the Wright brothers, right? It came from Leonardo da Vinci many years back. And that was the idea. An idea is where a product starts. An idea is where a product gets, the seeds it always comes from the idea. And it is not always possible to make an idea into reality. Leonardo da Vinci never invented the aircrafts. He had the idea, he knew the basics, he knew the concepts, but he couldn't get it to work. The next part is execution. Execution is always tricky. The Wright brothers were faced against an enormous amount of competition. They were cycle mechanics, and they were going against some of the top minds from the top universities of the United States of America. And there was a race to get the first mechanized flight out there. They won. They won the execution battle. They could get a product idea to execution, and they did not have the qualifications for it. All that they had was the conviction that they could get a product idea into the market, and that's very important. You need not be qualified specifically in that field to deliver an idea to execution, and that's one of the key lessons the Wright brothers taught us, but they were not a success. Does anybody know how the Wright brothers, what happened after they invented the aircraft? The Wright brothers were not able to make it into a product that was sellable in the market, and they died in poverty. The Wright brothers died in poverty because they could not convince people that the mechanized flights were going to succeed and win over big airships. Airships were the most popular form of air transport back in those days. And they could not convince people that, hey, there is a market for this. They did not have the vision to kind of take it into the marketplace. They were only concerned about inventing it. They did not have the ability to take the product into market. And that's very important. It's not just important for you to have an idea or to execute it really well. It's also important for you to take it to market, understand the market forces behind the idea, and kind of get it out there. And let me point out to you, in the last 20 years or 30 years or 50 years or 100 years, ideas are becoming very cheap. Anybody can come up with an idea. Execution is becoming very cheap too. Anybody can come up with a prototype. The tools are increasing. Everybody has access to better tools, has access to better network. Alumni networks are part of that, but they do have better ways to put together an execution plan. And even the last bit, taking it to market, is becoming cheaper and cheaper. I just heard a brief conversation on the corridor about how everybody was getting checks written to them on a hot field somewhere. So even the execution plan, even the taking to market, selling your idea is becoming easier because people are adapting to change. But there is one thing that is very hard for most companies to have, and that is not becoming cheaper and will not become cheaper for many, many years. It's in fact going to become very hard. It is very difficult for companies to keep their soul. Now, what do I mean by this? There are companies that I deeply admire. I admire Google because they solved some insanely computationally tough problems. I love Apple because they integrate their hardware and software really well. I like Bill Gates for becoming the first for building the first software company in the world. He knew software was going to drive everything. And I have many companies from India whom I love, who was built by founders from India. HackerRank is one company which believes that core engineering skills are hard to get, and they kind of work on delivering it. And it is very easy for a company to lose its purpose along the way. And it's important that, and what do I mean by sense of purpose? When a person uses your product or your service, they should immediately feel the intent. And that is getting lost. Most people don't understand how to communicate it or don't understand how to keep it intact. And I think that's very important. And I think that's going to set apart future entrepreneurs because everything else is becoming cheaper. The final part remains as tough as it was 500 years back. And that's all I have to say on the subject. Thank you very much.